Next, we're going to take a look at combining two rational expressions that have multiple factors in the denominator to start with. So the first fraction here has an x plus 1 and an x minus 7 in the denominator. The second fraction has an x plus 1 and an x minus 2 in the denominator. Now, the nice thing is they both have that x plus 1. That's already in common. What they don't have in common, though, is that x minus 7 or the x minus 2. So before we can actually go ahead and subtract these two fractions, we are going to have to make sure that those denominators look the same, that they all have the same factors. So in order to do that, this first fraction is missing that x minus 2. I need to multiply by that factor so that I have all three of those factors. And what I do to the denominator, I need to make sure I do to the numerator. The second fraction is missing the x minus 7. So I'm going to multiply both the denominator and the numerator by that x minus 7. Once I've shown that that's what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do that multiplication. So I'm going to distribute the x minus 2 to the x plus 3 and get x squared plus 3x minus 2x and minus 6 over the common denominator of x minus 2, x plus 1, and x minus 7. But then I need to subtract my second fraction from that. If I distribute the 4 in, I get a 4x minus 28 in that second fraction over the same denominator of x minus 2, x plus 1, and x minus 7. So then at this point, we want to look for any common terms that we can simplify. If I'm looking at my x squareds, the x squared here is the only x squared term that I have. So if I want to combine that, that's just going to be an x squared up in the numerator because there's nothing to simplify it with from the second fraction. My x's, I've got a 3x, a negative 2x, and then I'm subtracting 4x's from that. So 3 minus 2x's would be a 1x. 1x minus 4 more x's will leave us a negative 3x. And then combining my non-x terms, I've got a negative 6, and I'm subtracting a negative 28 from that. So negative 6 minus a negative 28 ends up being a positive 22. And then all of that is still over the common denominator of x minus 2, x plus 1, and x minus 7. And that would be our simplified expression. Now, the one thing as we go through this, after we found the common denominator and we start to look at combining like terms, the most common mistake I see is forgetting to subtract the terms from the second expression. Most students will go ahead and subtract off that 4x, but they'll forget to subtract off the negative 28. So this subtraction applies to both of these. So make sure that when you're combining those like terms that you're doing it appropriately, where you're subtracting all of your like terms. The x squareds to the x squareds, the x's to the x's, and the non-x's to the non-x's. So make sure to combine those appropriately so that you get to the final answer in the end. But we went through, we found a common denominator by identifying factors that were missing. Once we multiplied by those missing factors, we had some numerators that we could consolidate and combine our x squareds with the x squareds, the x's with the x's, the constants with the constants, and then got down to our final answer.